roads, and especially on Winston Spring, because there's been a lot of conversation about the widening of Winston Spring. And we have to make sure that that actually takes place, it takes precedent, and gets done. Number two, we have two major areas that can be solved by state legislation. One downtown, one in South Augusta. One has received more notoriety about what the state's going to do. One is Senate Bill 431, which was introduced by Senator Ed Tarver, and that was to try to protect, make sure that whatever happens to that property in the Golf Hall of Fame, we, as the city of Augusta, have an opportunity to have, one, first right of refusal, and number two, we should be the ones getting that particular property back. And we have to fight with the state about that, but that is a major issue, because that's property, it's prime real estate property, and something has to be done about it. It can only happen legislatively. So that's number two. Number three in another area, and this is the one in South Augusta, is of course our Regency Mall. We have to have something done about that. So we've had bills introduced to protect. We've had our bills introduced to protect downtown, but we need a bill introduced to protect Regency Mall. And let me tell you exactly what we can do. The Supreme Court some years ago made a decision, which I really didn't agree with, but it exists, so you have to use what you have at your disposal. The decision was, everyone knows about eminent domain powers. Eminent domain powers allows the government to take property, basically, in a nutshell. That's usually for the government to use the property. Well, quite honestly, we don't want the government to use Regency Mall. We don't necessarily need it. It would be not cost effective. But the Supreme Court also took it a step further in a Connecticut case and said the government can take property and give it to a private developer. Now, I think that's kind of weird that the government would take property and give it to a private developer, but it's the law of the land. Georgia enacted a law, which probably was accurate, and said that Georgia is not going to participate in that. We would not allow the government to take property and give it to a private developer. But with any law, because the Supreme Court says you can do it, with any law, you can make an exception. And we do it all the time in the state legislature. And so what I would look at is trying to make an exception which fits our particular purposes for a small amount of time. So therefore, you don't have a slippery slope problem. Very simple. Number one, in your legislation, you can say that the government may take property to give to a private developer if the property is valued over $10 million. So already, you've already priced out a lot of areas. Number two, that the property has not been used for a period of at least 10 years. So now, once again, we're excluding a lot of areas. And then number three, that you have a ready and willing developer within a 1-year period of time that is ready to develop that particular property. So I am concerned about a slippery slope problem too. I am not in favor of the government taking property and giving to private developers. That is very problematic. The Supreme Court says it can happen. Let's find a way to carve an exception that the legislature can deal with. We have to do something about it. We know that we have plans for South Augusta. I've been to the meetings. The persons who have put these plans together state they think they can do it without anything happening to Regency Mall. I just find that to be a fallacy. I don't think you're going to find a lot of private development coming in with that type of property just sitting there and not moving. So when we look at it, we talk about our roads and transportation infrastructure. We talk about what's downtown issue. One of the big issues is Georgia Golf Hall of Fame. But let's don't forget South Augusta has a big issue. That's Regency Mall. All can be solved legislatively. So those are my two.